GamingBolt presents 15 greatest PS2 games that also had amazing graphics. Sony's PlayStation 2 is the best-selling console of all time, with more than 155 million units sold since 2000. The console started somewhat slow, but picked up with awesome title after awesome title. Even when other consoles like the Xbox and GameCube rivaled it in terms of visuals, there were still plenty of great and visually splendid titles, not all exclusives, mind you, to enjoy on the PS2. Let's take a look at 15 of them right now. Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty. Though somewhat divisive over the protagonist and range of metaphysical themes, Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty was universally praised for its visuals. As a jump from the PS1 to the PS2 era, the animations, textures, and cinematic direction saw monumental improvements. Despite the highly industrial setting, environments were realistic, right down to the grime, dirt, and atmospheric lighting. Gran Turismo 4. By today's racing standards, Gran Turismo 4 may seem like a relic. However, for the time, it wasn't just a game that accurately captured each car's look in beautiful environments, it also captured how realistically they handle and the differences between various cars under a single automaker, and featured an almost obsessive amount of customization. Aliasing issues may have emerged, but the rock-solid frame rate made up for it. OKAMI. OKAMI has received praise throughout history for its beautiful aesthetics, which combine Japanese folklore with ink drawings brought to life with excellent cell shading. However, the game itself is an incredible action-adventure title whose art style actually plays a part in the gameplay. You brush ink onto various parts of the world to, say, reach higher platforms or battle enemies. Even if it felt a little easy, OKAMI still stands as an aesthetically significant and compelling adventure. God of War 2. For the sequel, SCE Santa Monica decided to think bigger. The scale increased significantly, combat became more varied and satisfying, but the same solid performance remained throughout. As for the texture detail, animations, and environmental design, the developer outdid themselves in pretty much every way. Even the story and boss battles were epic, from battling the Colossus of Rhodes to discovering the Steeds of Time. Final Fantasy XII. The Zodiac Age may have showcased the utter beauty of Final Fantasy XII in HD, but in the PS2 era, it represented so much more. This wasn't just a large, expansive world with excellent texture work, realistic animations, and breathtaking CG cutscenes. It also had some of the best storytelling and gameplay in the series till date, with a combat system that was well ahead of its time and tons of lore to unearth. Shadow of the Colossus. Though it suffered from frame rate troubles, there was simply nothing like Shadow of the Colossus. The utter towering size of the Colossi, the wide open ranges, and sheer detail given to each aspect of the game was spellbinding at the time. In terms of gameplay, it challenged the concept of boss fights and traditional storytelling, opting to show rather than outright tell at times. Zone of the Enders: The Second Runner. An underrated classic, Zone of the Enders: The Second Runner was an anime video game done right. The art style transitioned from sleek cutscenes to even sleeker gameplay that moved along at a brisk pace. The superior anti-aliasing to the previous game and overall higher production quality, despite some frame rate issues, further solidified Zone of the Enders: The Second Runner as one of the best PS2 games of its time. Metal Gear Solid 3: Snake Eater. Perhaps the best Metal Gear Solid of all time, Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater turned the franchise on its head in several ways. It took the traditional stealth gameplay into a predominantly outdoor setting with detailed foliage, better cutscenes, and character models, and improved motion capture for animations. The gameplay was far less linear and emphasized survival aspects, but the excellent boss fights, stealth mechanics, and compelling story stand out to this day. Resident Evil 4. Perhaps the game that revolutionized the over-the-shoulder third-person shooter genre. Resident Evil 4 changed so much about the series, it's crazy. The action was faster but still tense. Various water-cooler moments pushed players from one set piece to another, and the gunplay was a huge step forward from the previous games. It also helped that Resident Evil 4 looked the part, with creepy real-time environments, impressive animations, and the same level of detail of the previous games. Silent Hill 3. Silent Hill 3 was meant to be a different story direction for the franchise, taking inspiration from Stephen King and films like Jacob's Ladder. The surreal psychological horror was backed up by strong atmospherics, cutscenes, and great character designs. The latter was especially aided by several characters being based off of actors, like Claudia being modeled after Julianne Moore. Gameplay-wise, there wasn't much different, but Silent Hill 3 still retained that trademark atmosphere. Tekken 5. Namco had a way with fighting games in the PS2 days, and Tekken 5 heavily pushed the console's hardware. Improved graphics were only one step though, as Tekken 5 also had a faster fighting system. Several series favorites returned for a total of 32 characters, and an overall level of polish that Tekken 4 seemed to lack. It's no wonder that several follow-ups in the franchise took after it. Jak 3. Naughty Dog's Uncharted and The Last of Us series have probably earned it more acclaim, but the studio has been doing wonderful action-adventure titles since the PS1 era. Jak and Daxter defined the studio's PS2 run, with Jak 3 bringing the full extent of open-world gameplay and witty writing. The animated cutscenes were great, rivaling Ratchet & Clank at the time, and the sheer range of color brought the cartoon art style to life in the best way possible. Black. At some point, established Burnout developer Criterion took a stab at making a first-person shooter. Named Black, the experience was entirely linear and short while having a fairly corny story. However, the shooting was great fun, aided by environments that could be destroyed, a stylish real-time blur when reloading, and impressive gun and environmental modeling. It could have been better, but as a straight-up shooter, Black was pretty good. Odin Sphere. Vanillaware's 2D side-scrolling action RPG, Odin Sphere did more than just pick lavish graphics that resemble a painting into one game. It also proved that there was still room for gorgeous 2D visuals, and that the increased power of consoles could result in titles that wouldn't be out of place in any era. The Norse-inspired characters, boss fights, map design, and pretty much everything else meant that Odin Sphere was as fun as it was impressive. SOULCALIBUR 3. SOULCALIBUR 2 may not have fully exploited the power of the console despite being so much more hyped, but SOULCALIBUR 3 fixed all of that. It featured more realistic characters with moving hair. Furthermore, the 3D backgrounds actually felt alive while characters looked better than ever. The fact that the game brings a fun single-player mode with the same awesome fighting as previous iterations helps as well. And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.